The Manilow Method podcast is a production by Logan Allen and me, Barry Harris. Now, let's start the show.
Hey everybody, guess what? We're here again. There are some songs we haven't talked about yet off of the new Barry Manilow record, so we're here to do that today and offer some more insights into some things we've learned also about the new Barry Manilow album, What a Time. I'm Logan Allen, that's Barry Harris. Welcome back to the Manilow Method. If you're new here, follow us online. We talk about all of Barry Manilow's albums, all the songs, all the projects, all of everything. And today we are here to do just that. If you are unaware, on June 5th, Barry Manilow dropped a new album called What a Time, and we've already talked about all of the main songs from that record. You can go back, check out both parts of that discussion. But here today, we're going to talk about the bonus tracks that have come out on the different various physical forms of the album that have come out, as well as offer some insight into some more things that we've learned since we've talked about the album first. Because this is a one-of-a-kind episode, a one-of-a-kind discussion on our channel. Typically, we talked about albums with years of hindsight on them, and we looked at them in context of what it was like, you know, talking about an album that was released in 1996 and an album that was released in 1970 something or other. So this is very unique because we are talking about an album that's not even a month old at the time of this taping. So I think, Barry, we're just going to get right into this. We're going to start by talking about the three tracks we have not dissected yet on this show, and that's the three bonus tracks. There are different pressings of this album that have come out that have different tracks. The regular CD has one track. The regular vinyl, which, by the way, I have to shout out, finally came in the mail. Like, it's hot off the press for me. I haven't even opened it yet. But the regular vinyl, which is what this is, has another bonus track on it. And then Amazon put out their own exclusive vinyl and CD. The vinyl has the same vinyl bonus track, but the exclusive Amazon CD has a third different bonus track. So we're going to talk about all three of those for you here today. Starting with the regular CD track. This is a duet. On the main album, we have a duet with Sharon Muffy Hendrix, who is a part of the Manilow live cast, has been for a very long time. And the duet that we have here on the bonus tracks is with another person that's been in the Manilow live cast for a long time, with Melanie Taylor. This is Reunited. Now, if you're older than Barry and I are, you might know a song called Reunited, and that means you'll know this song, Reunited. Barry, what is this song?
Yes, this is a cover of the Peaches and Herb song, Reunited. And we mentioned back when What a Time, the album, when it was first announced, Logan and I came on and we had a discussion where we just reacted to the announcement, the press release. All that we knew at the time was the track listing. We didn't know any other details other than that, so we did some research to learn more about what this might mean. And when it comes to the song Reunited, back when Barry Manilow was making the greatest songs of the 70s album in 2007, he did a survey that he sent to all of his fans. I know this because I was one of those fans. And he sent a list of dozens and dozens of songs and asked his fans to rate which ones he should consider covering. And I noticed at that time that one of the songs on that list was Reunited as a duet with Bette Midler. So when I saw this revealed on the track list for What a Time, I made the assumption that we were going to hear an outtake from the greatest songs of the 70s. Now, one thing we want to note is that Barry Manilow, on the record to USA Today, made a comment about Reunited, and he confirmed that he proposed to Bette Midler that she come in and record this as a duet, but she declined to record that duet. I think that's a shame because they would have sounded great together, but equally as great is the fact that he has Melanie Taylor, his longtime supporting vocalist, who's been with him on stage, and ironically all this time, we've never heard Melanie on any one of Barry Manilow's records. We've never seen her name in the credits, at least. So this is the first time that they are united in the studio, and it just sounds absolutely amazing. They sound great together. They have great chemistry on stage, and so of course that translates very well in the studio. And in listening to this recording, I'm not sure if this was a version that came from the greatest songs of the 70s sessions. Our speculation here is that this recording that you hear on the bonus editions of the compact disc of What a Time is something that was more recently recorded. But Logan, I want to really point this out to you. This is the part that shocked me. It says the arrangement credit is to Barry Manilow and David Foster. How about that, Logan? These are two pop legends, Barry Manilow and David Foster, and they teamed up for this track. What do you think about that, Logan?
When this first was released, because this is not on streaming, this is only on the physical pressings, Barry was able to get his hands on the physical pressing before I did, so he said, "You are not going to believe who is on the credits for this." And he told me, and it came out of left field. That's a name I was not expecting to appear on this. I think Barry would be interested as well. I think we would be interested to know how exactly or why exactly David Foster came into the mix on this, because this sounds like a more modern recording. As Barry said, we were expecting potentially an outtake from the greatest songs of the 70s, but this sounds more modern. So how does David Foster fit into this picture? I think that would be the biggest question I have about this song. What about you, Barry?
Yeah, so definitely it would be interesting to see how Barry and David got to collaborating, but I know that David really respects Manilow's talents, because David Foster came in to produce Manilow on the complete collection and then some. Manilow covered the song The Best of Me, which was written and originally released by David Foster as a duet with Olivia Newton-John, and when Barry Manilow chose to cover it on the box set released in 1992, David Foster was the producer. And so, yeah, I love the fact that these two legends have such respect for each other that they can work together on a project like this, and I'm glad we get to hear it here. And I love what they do with Reunited, because Reunited, the original version by Peaches and Herb, it's such a great record. It's a beautiful song, and I love that they just have a lot of fun with the key changes. They keep changing the key a lot more than in the original version by Peaches and Herb. So I just love that they put their heads together on this one, and this is one to definitely check out.
So that is the specific bonus track for the regular CD pressing. The bonus track for the Amazon CD pressing is a really interesting song. It's called Cry for Coney Island. It's an Adrian Anderson lyric. I think out of all three bonus tracks, this one is my favorite. There's something about it that's just, I feel this song for some reason, and when we first heard it, we immediately recognized this is 80s Manilow. This is like, that's what we first said, and Barry, we mentioned on the album discussion, is a fine connoisseur of all things 80s Manilow. So we were pretty confident in that, but as we had some more listens to it, hearing some different parts, I think we've come to the conclusion, Barry, I cannot believe we're saying this on this show right now. We have come to the conclusion that we think there is a very, very, very strong chance that this was from the One Voice sessions, which is wild because Barry and I both hold the One Voice album in very high regard. I think it's one of the best Manilow records of the 70s. I cannot believe we're living in a time where there's a possibility we just heard a new song from One Voice. Barry, I know you're in love with that album. You're in love with those sessions. How does it feel to hear something new and fresh from that period, potentially? Tinfoil hat. We don't know for sure.
Yes, that's fair to say. We are just putting on our tinfoil conspiracy theory hat for this because we don't know this. We don't have any information that proves this, but we are just using our hearing and our listening to make our best guess. And I'll tell you why I particularly think this has to come from the One Voice sessions. So first, in the research that Logan and I have done, in fact, this was Logan who pointed this out. We were reading old Barrygrams, and Logan brought to my attention that there was a blurb in a very old Barrygram that claimed that dozens and dozens of songs were recorded for the One Voice album and never really made it anywhere. And so that's the first clue that was a prolific time, clearly, for Manilow. So the fact that that would be a great source to find something would be from the One Voice sessions. And as I listened, the first thing that struck my ear, other than just the quality of Manilow's vocal, it was the keyboards. And that keyboard sounds a lot like Bill Mays. Bill Mays is a musician who played the keyboards on a lot of Barry Manilow albums in the late 1970s and early 1980s. So I'll give you an example. If you know the song Fools Get Lucky from If I Should Love Again, when he sings, "My love was once a high trapeze," and you hear that nice keyboard chime, boom, that's Bill Mays. He would always, he would always add that sound to the Barry Manilow records. And then Bill Mays would go on to be the foundational element of the Paradise Cafe album. So that is quite a history that Manilow has had with Bill Mays. So I hear this playing of the keyboards. It strikes me as this has to be Bill Mays. And then the other thing that stood out to me was the bass line. It's, it's a little bit funky, but at the end, as it starts fading out, the bass starts doing this slap sound. And here's the thing. One of my favorite basses of all time is Will Lee. And Will Lee is the one musician, maybe other than Ron Dante, who has recorded on more hit songs with Barry Manilow than any other musician. And his bass line anchors Mandy, It's a Miracle, Copacabana, Even Now, Daybreak, One Voice, Let's Hang On, and it goes on and on and on. And his bass lines are so distinct, and especially on the One Voice album, Will Lee was pretty much over almost all of the One Voice album. So having been very familiar with Will Lee's playing of the bass, there's no way this is not Will Lee. So given that information, I'm really strongly thinking this is One Voice. But I'm going to add one last thing to really put this over the top. When he started to sing Rain on Coney Island, it struck me this has to be from the One Voice sessions, and I found that clue explains why this never made the One Voice album. Because One Voice, the album, has a song called Rain that was written by Adrian Anderson. And the song Rain obviously took the place on the album as the song about rain. And if you have one song about rain, you're not going to have another song about rain. So that's what we think. That's why we concluded that this is probably from the One Voice sessions. But we love this song. Like you said, Logan, I'm in love with this too, and it's just so fascinating. It's a different flavor than everything we've heard on the What a Time record. It's a little more jazzy than anything else that has come out of this particular record. So I love the fact that they included it, and I hope that in the future that we get to hear more Vault releases like this, because I absolutely love hearing this track.
So I guess the only question that's left on this song is, in the liner notes, we don't get any specific instrument credits. We don't know who played the bass or the keys. We have guesses, but we don't get specifics. All we get is that it was produced by Barry Manilow and Michael Lloyd. The only question left is, what did Michael Lloyd add to this? Because listening to the rest of the album, you hear these bombastic drums, these big guitars. That is the Michael Lloyd sound for this record. You don't really get that on this song. So I guess the last question that we would like to pose to you, our viewers, if you know this song, if you have the Amazon CD, check out this song. Write to us in the comments, write to us in our email. What do you think Michael Lloyd added to this song? We would love to see your take on that. So, we have one more bonus track here. This is the vinyl exclusive bonus track, a song called Party to the Top. This is one of the newest songs on this record, which I think is fantastic. If you go back and watch our other discussion, you'll see that Don't Trouble the Water and Coming of Age are both newer tracks. They were written during the pandemic. This is another pandemic track. Very unique song, kind of like Cry for Coney Island. There's not another song that I could really compare it to on this album. It kind of threw me on my first listen. I didn't know what I was expecting. I was obviously expecting something with more of an upbeat feeling. With a title like Party to the Top, I mean, how could you not have a sort of funkiness going on? But Barry, you have an interesting idea. We talked about Don't Trouble the Water and maybe the Beach Boys influence. We've kind of pinpointed some songs we think might have had a hand in shaping Party to the Top. Talk to us about those songs.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any dead ringers out there in terms of a particular song that was used as a reference, but I will say this, that I was listening to the radio one day just shortly after I'd heard the song Party to the Top, and a song called Keep On Lovin' Me by the Whispers came on the radio. And as soon as I heard it, it struck me as maybe the way the synthesizers sound on the Whispers song is a little bit similar to the way the synthesizers are put onto this particular record, Party to the Top, which I have to say, this is a funky record. It's very catchy, and I have to say, this motif in Party to the Top has really stuck with me. I just keep singing, let's take this party to the top, ba-ba-da-bum, and I just, that sticks with you. It's just very catchy, and so given that, and listening to this song I hear on the radio, Keep On Lovin' Me, and the other song that struck me was Turn Your Love Around by George Benson. Very bouncy, happy song, and obviously both of those songs that I'm referencing are from the early 1980s. This song sounds like it could be from either, the 1980s or even the very early 1990s. It's a very hip track, and it's really intriguing to me, but I don't know. This is just it. Like I said, it's an intriguing track to me. Like I said, it's very catchy. I dare you to not have it stick with you after you hear it if you haven't been able to track down a vinyl copy of What a Time. It's a really, really interesting song. And I love Manilow experimenting with new genres that he really doesn't spend too much time in, and I can't help but think if he did try to write in that genre, that would have fit in the early 1980s in terms of that, George Benson and Whispers type of records, I think he would have fitted very well. I think he would have done something really good. And I'm glad he's doing it now. And again, we said, like you mentioned, Logan, this was a brand new song, but yet it doesn't feel like this is a new song. This feels like something that's a classic. I don't know, but this is so intriguing, and I really hope for any of you who are watching or listening to us, definitely, if you've heard Party to the Top, we would love to hear your take on this song and what you think of it. And if there's any songs out there that you think this might be similar to, or just what your reaction was to hearing this, because like I said, this is a real left turn of a song. And after, again, we listened to this for the first time after now having heard all 13 of the original tracks from the What a Time album, this Party to the Top song really is a exciting left turn, covering some musical ground that was not covered yet on the What a Time sessions.
I've seen some pushback in some places about, you're going to make us buy 3 different copies of the album just for one extra song. And I've seen other artists do this, and sometimes it falls a little flat, where the bonus tracks are just kind of whatever. It's obvious why they didn't make the actual album. But I honestly think all 3 of these songs were worthy of separate releases. I think that this was a good usage of specific songs, specific to specific pressings. That was a lot of specificness in one sentence. But I really think all 3 of these songs deserve to be heard, because each song has something different to offer, and I'm not sure they would have fit in the main track list, but I sure do love them as tie-ons to the end. I think they're really, really fun songs. So, this is where this episode was going to end, but like we have said, this is a brand new album. We are still actively researching and learning things. So our main discussion is really only the beginning, what we were able to find within 2 days of the album being out. We were grinding that weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We were trying to learn so many things, but there was no way we could learn everything. So right now we're going to kind of make this an unofficial part 3 episode instead of just a small little bonus episode. We're going to go back and tell you some things that we have learned since we filmed that discussion last week. So, something really fun to start off with. Track 1, Once Before I Go check out the discussion for all of our thoughts on the songs. Something very interesting that I just learned about this. Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, for those of you that were real hip to like 90s music to into the 2000s, Babyface was a very prominent name in the music scene, and he produced this song. And I've seen on record that Clive Davis is the one who told Manilow, hey, there's this guy named Babyface. Let's talk to him about doing this song for you, because Manilow was on the road. They needed somebody else to produce it, so they called Babyface in, and I just thought that was what it was. Clive had the idea for Babyface, and that was that. But I was watching the live by request thing that they did at the end of 1996, right when the Summer of 78 came out. It was when people could call in and request songs, and he would do them with the band live on television. And one of the callers requested, could it be Magic? So he sat down at the piano and started playing the Chopin prelude. And he made this comment. He said, Chopin is my absolute favorite composer, right next to Babyface. So in 1996, and again, it was met with laughter, so we don't know if it was just said in jest, but he still made a reference to Babyface in 96, and he also name-dropped Babyface on Manilow Talks. That was the hotline you could call, and he would have different messages or stories that would play in the late 90s. So, I mean, this is a name that he invoked twice in the same era, and then, almost said 20 years later, 30 years later, Babyface has produced a Manilow song. So that's something we really wanted to mention, is that Babyface is not a new name to Manilow when Clive perhaps suggested it. This is a name that he's known for a long time. So that's something very interesting we've learned about Once Before I Go. Barry, what have we learned about the title song?
Okay, so I mentioned on the program when we talked about What a Time, how catchy the melody was. What a time! Like, it sticks with you. And another thing that Logan brought up is that we discovered that in the copyright registration database, there were 2 registrations for What a Time. There was the original in 1982, and then there was a second in 1985. And we speculated openly on the program. We didn't really know what happened in 1985. What changes did they make? Well, guess what? We know what happened in 1985. And this is thanks to one of our viewers. Beth wrote us an email. If it was not for Beth, if it was not for you, we would have no idea about this. So here goes, everybody. What a Time was used as a theme song for a syndicated television show called The Music of Your Life, hosted by Tony Tennille in 1985. So let's explain what that is. The Music of Your Life was a television show that was meant to be a companion to television shows like Solid Gold. Solid Gold was a show that targeted towards young viewers, playing the hits of today, where artists would come on and they would perform their latest hits. But The Music of Your Life was the opposite. It would get artists from the past to come and celebrate songs that meant so much to people and celebrate them. And so the song What a Time was used as the theme song for this television show, The Music of Your Life. When the show comes on, the trumpets play this fanfare, ba ba ba, and there's a timpani roll, and they say, on tonight's show, Mr. Johnny Mathis, Andy Gibb, And then the jingle singers went in to start singing What a Time. They would sing What a Time, and then the trumpets would play the melody ba 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 ba, and then the credits would roll, and then Tony Tennille, the host, would come out. And then at the end of the program, Tony Tennille sang the song, and she said this theme song was written for us, especially for us, by Mr. Barry Manilow, and she proceeded to sing What a Time on syndicated national television. So this song was not the obscurity that we thought it was. It actually got a very wide airing on national television. But the one thing that changed in 1985 is because the title of the program is called The Music of Your Life, they changed the last line to say, the music of your life. That's what they did. They instead of what a time repeated at the end, they changed the ending to say the music of your life to fit the name of the television program into the song. But there you go. The Music of Your Life, a television show hosted by Tony Tennille, used What a Time as its theme song. Our mind was blown by that, so thank you, Beth, once again for writing to us.
Shout out, Beth. Come on. That was crazy. That did blow our minds when that came into our inbox. So, once again, this is a great time to remind you, the Manilow Method at gmail.com. We actually do read emails, so we appreciate Beth writing in. If you have something else big you want to share with us, we encourage you to do so. Track 3 is Sunshine. You can go listen to the conversation about the song. But something big that's happened since the album came out is on June 9th this year in Glasgow, Scotland. He sang it live for the very first time. In fact, he sang it live every single night on the UK tour that just wrapped up. He actually put it in the middle of Daybreak, which I think is very smart. It's a nice way to sandwich a new song in between a bunch of familiar songs. When Barry and I first listened to this album, we considered, of all the songs on this album, which ones have the biggest chance of getting done live? Sunshine was on our list because, number one, it's a single, and number two, it's in his vocal range. I believe he dropped it a half step. Is that correct, Barry?
Yes, he's dropped it a half step, and then he truncated it and went right to the end and modulated it up just a half step, and then took it back into Daybreak for the final chorus of Daybreak. So I love the way this was arranged for the live show, and like you said, Logan, what a great way to present this song in between some other beloved classics.
Right, because, I mean, playing in an arena with 10,000 people, however many people are there, I mean, it's a task to introduce them to new material. So, geniusly being able to sandwich it between songs that they know, even in the middle of a song they know, and come back to the other song, I think it's a short and sweet way to present them with something new and relevant. The Chosen One. You should definitely go back and watch our discussion on The Chosen One, because, man, we had a lot to unload, and I don't think we've unloaded all of it yet. We have one question about The Chosen One. We know it was from the Here at the Mayflower sessions, and if you don't know anything about the album Here at the Mayflower, every song on the album is about a different life behind an apartment door in New York City. If you look at the track list on the back of the album, each song is attached an apartment number. It's attached not specifically a person, but an apartment in the building that the song is being sung from, the person that lives in that apartment. We would love to know, if the powers that be are watching, what apartment was The Chosen One supposed to be sung from? Because we have some theories. We know some of our fans have theories. You know, we think that maybe it was supposed to be sung from 2H because it's very similar to Say Goodbye, and that's the apartment it comes from. One of our viewers, Mary from New Jersey, said maybe it's coming from 4J, where the song Talk to Me is being sung. There are all sorts of theories that we're throwing around, and when we eventually do a Here at the Mayflower episode, you can bet your buttons that that's going to be a part of the conversation. But we would love to put that out there. What are your theories? What apartment do you think Here at the Mayflower comes from? Because I don't think there are two bigger Mayflower nerds in the world than Logan Allen and Barry Harris right here. So that's a conversation that will be ongoing for as long as we have to wait until we can maybe actually find out. But Barry, you noticed a musical reference in this song.
Yes. Well, it's a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, to be fair, but I think that there is a deliberate reference to an older track embedded in this song. So one of the most striking parts of this song musically for me is when it gets to the second chorus and it suddenly is interrupted by these dramatic hits. Bop, 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 bop. You were my one and only one. And it modulates up. I noticed that it was familiar to me, and then I realized that these rhythmic hits that are heard in The Chosen One are the exact same rhythmic hits that you hear in the song If We Only Have Love on the 1991 Broadway covers album Showstoppers. The song ends, which, by the way, I think is such a fabulous track, If We Only Have Love, as sung by Barry Manilow. He holds the last note, and then the trumpet plays the melody of If We Only Have Love, ba-da-da-da-da-da. And then when the melody is finished, the drums come in and there's this big rhythmic hit and it goes ba 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 ba, and then repeats and fades. And I think that The Chosen One is deliberately calling back to the song If We Only Have Love. And if that's true, I think that makes that moment in The Chosen One even more emotionally devastating. Somebody who is, singing about a lack of love and possibly calling back to the track, If We Only Have Love. I think that's even more emotionally devastating, in my opinion. So I think this was a deliberate and specific reference. Now, of course, we want to hear your comments. We want to know what you think about that. If you think we're off base about this, but I don't know. I think that was deliberate.
All right, we're going to keep moving here. This is a very long bonus episode, but we thank you for sticking with us. The next song we want to revisit is Nobody Knows My Song. As soon as this came out, both of us noticed there are a lot of similarities to I'm Your Man. It's in C minor, and it's basically the same toward the major 4, and then it's the same harmonic structure that I'm Your Man has. And I'm going to pose a conspiracy theory here that potentially, I'm not saying this is 100%, potentially, I think this song may have been a last-minute add to this album, or at least one of the final editions, because we know that it was publicly stated on stage. I was in the room multiple times when Manilow said this on stage. Dancin' in the Aisles was supposed to be on this album. That was a song written back in the 80s. He performed it in the 2000s, and then he's been performing it the last few years. The past few years, he would intro that song as, this is going to be on my next pop album. They announced the track list for this album. Dancin' in the Aisles was nowhere to be seen. I think there might be some potential that Nobody Knows My Song replaced Dancin' in the Aisles on this album because of the similarities to I'm Your Man, which has been a live staple in the show for the past 2 years. I think if he was feeling snazzy, there's a potential he could mash this song up with I'm Your Man and give the people another interesting glimpse. That felt weird. Give people an interesting look into the new album again. I think there might be potential that Dancing in the Aisles left the record to make way for this song. I don't know. Nobody come at me for that. If you agree, disagree, whatever, let us know. But something else we also pointed out on the first discussion that we want to pose to you is, it is very obvious to us that this version of this song is from the 15-minute sessions, 2010, 11, that era. The reason for that being the drum fill. That is the exact same drum fill. It's the same sample. It's not even a different sound playing the same rhythm. It's the same exact sample from Everything's Gonna Be Alright, the closing track of 15 minutes. So that seals the deal for Barry and I here. This song is from the 15-minute sessions. The question is, where was this song originally going to be in the track list? Maybe towards the beginning when the title character is still searching for fame. Nobody knows his song yet. Or maybe, it's the dance song. It has the same drum fill as Everything's Gonna Be Alright. Maybe it was going to be the final song. We don't know. That's another thing we want to pose to you is, where do you think this would have existed had it been released in the 15 Minutes universe? Now, look at me now. What a phenomenal song. I think we've conveyed to you at this point how much we love this song. We've learned something. Barry, what have we learned about Look at Me Now?
Yes, so this was written in the liner notes, but we forgot to mention this on the program we taped, but I thought that this was worth revisiting because this is very interesting. That Look at Me Now was recorded in historic RCA Studio A in Nashville. So this really fulfills something that Manilow had as a desire. He really wanted to make a Nashville record. There was a press tour he was doing in the early 1990s. He was promoting his complete collection and then some, and he made a comment that he really wanted to make a Nashville record, and KT Oslin, who was his duet partner on the Because It's Christmas 1990 album, was urging him to go down to Nashville and record with the musicians there. He later did fulfill that in 1996 when he recorded The Summer of '78 with Michael Amardian, and it seems like this is another opportunity to record with Nashville musicians. But it's a very historic studio, and you can look up all of the recordings that happened in that particular room. But now Barry Manilow has added himself to the legacy of the historic RCA Studio A.
So we're going to keep moving here, keep moving. Nobody Told Me. This song we mentioned was also written in 1982, just like What a Time. It's another John Bettis lyric. The question is, this is such a beautiful song. Barry, why do you think it didn't make the final cut for the Here Comes the Night album?
Yeah, so this is something I got out of one of my subsequent listenings to this song after we taped our program. I noticed the lyrics said, "I guess I won't be sleeping tonight. The memories are just too clear to fight." And that's where I said, whoa, stop. That's the same idea as the title song of the album Here Comes the Night. It's basically about the same thing. So it's logical to make an assumption that he had the song Nobody Told Me and he had the song Here Comes the Night, both songs written by John Bettis. Both the songs talk about coping with the memory of a love that is no longer there. And you also have the song Memory on Here Comes the Night. So there was not room for 3 songs that talk about memories. So therefore, a very beautiful song in Nobody Told Me had to be removed from the sequence. Again, we're putting our tinfoil conspiracy theory hats here, but that would make total sense that they certainly were writing songs about the same idea, and they chose the ones that would fit the album sequence the best. And they went with Here Comes the Night for the Here Comes the Night album. But this song, of course, we're glad it now finally gets out because it's just a gorgeous song. It's absolutely devastating. I think I may have said this is one of my favorite tracks on the record, but like I said, if this was in the running for the Here Comes the Night album, I think it's obvious because of the content of the lyrics why it did not make that record.
Okay, that's a lot of the new things we wanted to discuss. One more thing we wanted to drop in here is that Manilow went on record a little while ago actually saying that there is a whole other version of this album that has big orchestrations like he used to do back in the day. While I'm so happy with what we have on this album, I still think it would be interesting to hear what it's like with the strings and the background vocals and that lusher sound, I guess. I think it'd still be interesting to hear, so vault recordings, if that's ever a road we want to go down, that would be kind of fun to hear, is what did some of these songs sound like? What did some of these songs sound like? I want to hear how The Chosen One was supposed to end on the Mayflower, because the ending that we have today is Michael Lloyd all day long. All this stuff, these big drums, guitars, that is Michael Lloyd all day long. I want to hear the original ending. We want to close this with something that we've noticed over the past couple of weeks. And we made a post when the album first came out, and it was obvious then, it's even more obvious now. if you ask any group of Manilow fans what their favorite song is on this album, you're going to get different answers. Some people say it's Once Before I Go. Some people say it's Another Life. Some people say it's The Chosen One. Some people say it's Don't Trouble the Water. Everybody has a different favorite song on this album. And to Barry and me, that is a hallmark of a great album. You put out an album and everybody has a different favorite song. I mean, you've hit a home run. If you can put out an album and nobody can agree on what the best song is on the album, that is a true work of art. You can put out something that connects with so many different people as a whole, and so many people enjoy the album, but they all enjoy it for different reasons. I mean, I'll give you a round of applause on that one, Manilow. That is fantastic, because my favorites are different from Barry's, and Barry's favorites are different than some people in the comment section, and the comment section differ from me, and like everybody that we have talked to about this album has a different point of view on their favorite songs and what makes them their favorite songs. And it's been so fun to talk to all of you about this, because this is the first time in my life I've talked to other people about a new Barry Manilow album. And I just, this has been such a fun experience, experiencing new Manilow music, new original Manilow music with other people for the first time. And I cannot believe we have had such a stroke of genius come from the Manilow camp with this album. This album is what we wanted. Even if it's not as orchestrated as the old albums, it is still a fantastic representation, I think, of where Manilow is today. And I'm just so happy with the way this album has turned out, and I love every single song on it. Barry, let's wrap this up. This is really long.
Yes, but I think this was worth it because, like you said, Logan, it's hard to put this in historical context. Our hot take when this came out, that this was an instant classic. A couple weeks on now, I think that is held up. This is an instant classic. And just to talk about the archives, yes, I have a burning curiosity for the purpose of historical reporting to know what was the evolution of these songs, what did they sound like when they were demoed in the 1980s. But at the same time, though, this album is such a classic that I don't think that's particularly important to solidify the legacy of this album. I think it stands on its own, and like you said, that's a good thing. We're not so desiring to hear what the archived version sound like. We're not having a burning desire to hear what the really orchestrated version of this album sounds like, although we definitely want to hear it. We were very curious to hear it, but again, I think that the right choice was made to put this album out, an album that sounds contemporary, it sounds fresh, and I hope, if anything, that this encourages Manilow to continue to record, to continue to write new songs, because clearly he still is very much vital in terms of his artistic output. This album really stands up to the point where we actually got a few comments of people saying this might be their favorite Manilow album of all time. And that's saying a lot, because Manilow has produced some absolutely classic albums. So What a Time really deserves to be heard far and wide. And if anything, with these programs that we are producing, we hope if this is something you haven't heard yet, What a Time, that you go out and listen to it, and better yet, go out and buy a physical copy just like the old days, because there's nothing better than having a tangible media in your hand. And I think that this is a great way to really register your support. And I think the more people that respond to this album and say that they like it, I think that might mean there'll be more possibilities in the future that we'll get not only new recordings, new vault releases that are curated by Manilow, and hey, maybe even a songbook. There's so many people that want to be playing these songs and covering these songs. I think a songbook would be amazing, and if people respond and buy this album, then I think that's going to really encourage that to possibly happen. So let's really show this album the support it deserves, and I'm so glad that it's here in the world, and we tip our hat to the one and only Dr. Barry Manilow for creating yet another masterpiece.
There are two vinyl versions. There's the Shop Manilow version, and there's the Amazon variant. There's the regular CD version, and there's the Amazon CD version. There are 4 different versions of this album that you can get, so whichever one tickles your fancy, go out, check it out, buy a copy, and yeah, let's just introduce the music of Manilow to as many people as we possibly can this year, because that's the purpose of this show, is to not only express our love for the work that Manilow has done in his career, but also to introduce some material to people that you may not have heard. Barry and I were talking yesterday. One of our favorite things to hear from viewers like you is, well, I've never heard this before. We talked about an album, we talked about a song, they say, oh, I've never heard this before, and because you talked about it, I went and listened to it, and oh my gosh, that is so good. That is one of our favorite responses to get off of any of these videos, is the fact that we made you seek out something new that you will now enjoy for forever. That is what Barry and I are so proud of this show, and we are so happy that so many of you have found us. At the time of this taping, we are so close to 5,000 followers on Facebook, so we want to say thank you for that. Please tell your friends. It's insane how many people have latched onto this, and Barry just got back from the UK tour. He got to meet so many of you, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there, but Barry and I are both going to be at some shows later this year, so if you happen to see us, we would love to talk to you. We'd love to say hi. I'm Logan Allen, that is Barry Harris, and we'll see you soon, because we're back here with our second season of the Manilow Method. We hope you enjoyed this bonus episode / part 3 / hodgepodge, whatever it was, most relaxed episode we've ever done. We hope you have enjoyed yourselves, and we will see you very soon for the next episode of the Manilow Method.